Hi, I'm Ben and you're watching Batarang to the Butt, and this video is all about the American hunk of beef that is John Walker. In the late 80s, many fans wanted Marvel to Rambo-ize Captain America, and to make him a bit more hardcore like the Punisher or Wolverine. However, the writer, Mark Gruenwald, considered this to be a violation of the character's principles. And you know what? To this day, Gruenwald is still the longest running Captain America writer, so I tend to agree with him. He definitely understood the Star-Spangled Man. Anyway, Gruenwald decided that he would give fans the edgier Cap that they wanted, but that it couldn't be Steve Rogers. And that's where John Walker comes in. Walker was introduced in Captain America issue 323 in 1986. The character first appeared under the identity of Super Patriot, and Super Patriot fancied himself as the new Captain America, the new and improved Captain America, and he wasn't shy about letting people know it. In fact, he would hold rallies to let people know exactly what he was all about. One of his rallies was seemingly attacked by Captain America supporters who were not happy with all of the anti-Cap sentiments. Conveniently, this gave Super Patriot an opportunity to show off his abilities. He puts on a show for the crowd as he handles the thugs with ease. He even then cheers on the police as they arrive on the scene. The crowd goes wild and the rally is considered a success. However, Steve Rogers soon realises that Walker and his team had set the whole thing up, and they had faked the attack. Even the police officers were fake. It was all a trick to make it seem as though Super Patriot had saved the day. Kinda like Syndrome's plans in The Incredibles, but Super Patriot actually pulled it off. It was essentially both propaganda and a smear campaign rolled into one. Steve confronts Walker and his team about this, but they refuse to back off. Steve's case isn't helped by the fact that Captain America had become a controversial figure, after Steve had recently publicly shot down a terrorist. He wasn't proud of his actions, but there was no other choice at the time. Anyway, the next time Cap and Super Patriot would meet would be in issue 327. Super Patriot and the Buckies had continued to tarnish Cap's reputation since their last encounter. The Buckies, by the way, were a secret organisation that supported Super Patriot. They wore Captain America masks and performed vigilante justice against anyone who opposed their conservative ways. Buckies, in this case, stood for Bold Urban Commandos, and there were 3 in the group. However, you only need to worry about
Lamar Hoskins.
Look, I see a guy hanging out of a helicopter in tactical gear. I need a lot more than Lamar Hoskins.
I'm Battlestar, John Spartan.
Battlestar?
Yeah, Battlestar. But don't worry, we'll get to that in a bit. Anyway, ever since their first encounter, Super Patriot had been dying to fight Captain America. And now, thanks to all of the trouble that he and his team had been causing, Cap finally felt like indulging him, and maybe even teach him a lesson along the way. Cap manages to dodge all of Super Patriot's incredibly powerful blows, however, his own moves don't do very much in return. I also think it's worth noting that the Super Patriot uses this little torch as his weapon. It's kinda like a lightsaber, but it's based on the torch that the Statue of Liberty carries, and I think that's pretty fun. Anyway, the fight goes on for almost an hour before they are forced to call a stalemate and go their separate ways. There's no real winner here, but it's clear that Super Patriot is a good match for Captain America. Now, obviously we saw him jump off the Statue of Liberty in his first appearance, but this is when Steve first realises that Super Patriot has superhuman abilities. And I'll get to why that is in just a bit. The big shake-ups began to occur a couple of issues later in Captain America issue 332, when Steve Rogers was given an ultimatum by the CSA, the Commission on Superhuman Activities, which is essentially a branch of the government that dealt with superheroes. It turns out that the concept of Captain America is owned by the government, so Steve has to work for them or give up the title and the shield. Steve had recently been struggling to find his place in the world, but he knew that he didn't want to be tied down to a political agenda. He wanted to represent the American dream, not the American government. And so, he decides to give it up. And look, we now know that wasn't a permanent change, but at the time, this was huge. After all, it was seemingly the end of an era. The next issue, number 333, changed its spotlight to John Walker, aka the Super Patriot. And finally, we were given his backstory. It turns out that John had grown up in the shadow of his older brother Mike's military achievements. Mike had also died in the Vietnam War. John had joined the army to be just like him, and he was pretty well accomplished himself, but it was difficult to chase that fame and glory once the war was over. After receiving an honourable discharge from the army, Walker was told about the Power Broker, a mysterious individual who gave people superhuman abilities. And thanks to this power broker, Walker and Hoskins received a superhuman upgrade. The concept of the power broker is kind of glossed over here, but that's because Cap had been investigating the character for several issues before handing in his shield. So by this stage, the power broker had already been dealt with. But anyway, after initially getting his abilities, Walker was indebted to the power broker, and so he intended to join the Unlimited Class Wrestling Federation. But before he could, he met Ethan Thurm, who convinced him to become a superhero instead, and then became his manager. And so Walker isn't exactly in the game for any strong moral reason. He just wants to be the most powerful soldier that he can be. And so after he had recently dealt with a terrorist somewhat successfully, the government decided they wanted him to be the next Captain America. At first, Walker is disappointed that he has to give up the identity of Super Patriot, but he ultimately answers, "Ma'am, if Uncle Sam wanted me to be Mickey Mouse, I'd do it." And so that's how John Walker becomes Captain America in the comics. At first, the government didn't plan on making the new Captain America public. In fact, Walker had to study tapes of Steve Rogers so that he could imitate Steve's movements, and he was trained how to wield the shield by the villainous assassin Taskmaster. Walker is also joined by his friend Lamar Hoskins as his Bucky. Lamar was the only one of Super Patriot's Buckies that made this transition, because he was the only one who passed the government's background checks. However, writer Mark Gruenwald decided to change the name Bucky after he realised that the word buck had racist connotations towards black people. And so, Lamar became Battlestar, which, to be honest, is a much cooler codename anyway. Over the course of the run, Walker does become slightly more likeable, especially when he begins to try and emulate Steve Rogers' ethics. However, Walker does maintain his hot-headedness and can't help but be reactionary most of the time. When the government finally does decide to reveal to the world that there is a new Captain America and that he has a new sidekick, they hold a large ceremony at the Washington Monument. However, it all goes wrong when left-winger and right-winger show up. This was the two rejected Buckies who had now rebranded themselves, and they were pretty furious about being left behind. And so, they revealed to the world John Walker's true identity and his birthplace. This then leads to one of the most tragic issues of John Walker's time as Cap. In issue 345, Ma and Pa Walker are kidnapped and held hostage by a group known as the Watchdogs. Walker manages to tear through them all, but unfortunately his parents are shot in the crossfire. This sends Walker on a bloody rampage, but unfortunately he is unable to save them. As you can imagine, this messed up Walker pretty badly, but he at least gets his vengeance when he beats left and right winger to a pulp and then leaves them both to die in an explosion. Walker's time with the Shield actually provided a major boost to the comic's sales, and so he remained in the role from issue 333 right through to issue 350. His story doesn't end there, but I'm afraid I'm going to end this video there. If you want to see what happens to him next, then make sure you've liked Batarang to the Butt on Facebook and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Next time, I'll tell you all about how Walker went from being Captain America to being the US agent, which is also his current identity. And if you're looking for more Captain America content, then be sure to go and check out my other video where I talk about the time that Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon, also became Captain America. Thanks.